So, how about that? The guy that says change is good is getting changed. Who would have thought? Hello guys, how are we doing? So, today I'll just be talking about the Kha'Zix changes that Riot are planning to make to him. And yeah, this is just going to be a nice little talk video on what I think about them, how they affect Kha'Zix, and overall what I think about the current state of Kha'Zix in the meta and how he plays. So, etc, etc, etc. Let's get started. Alright, so in case you didn't know, Riot are planning the following changes to Kha'Zix. So the range of his isolation is being reduced from 425 to 375. Now this is a buff. The W evolve slow is being reduced from 60% to 40%, and the isolated slow will be reduced from 90% to 75%. This is a nerf. The R duration, meaning the time you have to cast all of your Void Assault casts, is being increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. This is also a buff. So there you go. What do you think? These changes look pretty good, right? I mean, 2 buffs and a nerf to W evo, which is already pretty strong. I mean, it sounds good, right? Well, unfortunately, I really hate to be one of those people who sees things negatively, but this is honestly kind of a joke. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Let me kind of explain as to why myself and pretty much every high elo car player thinks these changes make Kha'Zix even worse. So, let's talk about the buffs first. So we've got reduced isolation range. This is nice, and very clearly a change that is more on the quality of life side to give Kha'Zix more opportunities to go for assassinations. Now, the question is, how much more will Kha'Zix actually be able to take advantage of people being out of position with this new isolation range? Well, in my opinion, this will not make much of a difference, but I'm only speculating here, right? Who knows? Maybe the 50 range reduction will be absolutely insane and let us take so many more kill opportunities. It's hard to say just by looking at writing on a screen, but the reason I feel this won't impact Kha'Zix too much is because traditionally, in order to peel for a teammate, people usually end up sticking right next to their ally anyway, especially if they're a melee style champ. Now the thing is, people that know how to play against Kha'Zix will still inevitably stand next to each other when trying to counter the bug boy, which pretty much will render the isolation change useless. Like, you're not going to see any value from this isolation change if the enemy team is sticking together and countering the Kha'Zix as they should be, which is very, very common in today's meta. However, of course, not everyone does this, right? Not everyone is going to stick together like glue, and it's pretty common for players in solo queue, or, you know, just players who aren't coordinated with each other to separate from their team. So that's what this isolation change would end up doing, is that it would allow Kha'Zix to hypothetically take more engages, get more kills, which would lead to more gold for him, leading to more items, higher snowball potential, and overall better performance for Kha'Zix in general. This is what Riot hopes to achieve. They're being extremely careful changing Kha'Zix, not buffing his numbers, but instead giving him more ways to thrive and potentially come out ahead in a game. Now, this has been one of Riot's common philosophies with assassins. For example, we've seen how they've added +5 move speed to the mythic passives of the lethality items, and can we all just agree that literally no one notices that shit? Yes? Okay, thank you. Well then, I rest my case. The 50 range reduction is a quality of life change that will rarely impact Kha'Zix, only in certain specific scenarios. This is because not having isolation was rarely an issue. If someone is sitting in a wave of minions, right, it doesn't matter how large the ISO radius is, they're not going to be isolated. And the same goes for if they're alone and out of position. Unless a teammate swoops in and groups with them, it's very unlikely that they'll be unisolated anytime soon. And that's why, with the experience I have on Kha'Zix, I just don't feel like this change is going to do much at all. Yeah, however, I am keeping an open mind, right? And I will say that I am expecting a few more, isolation opportunities in group scenarios. Maybe, skirmishes and team fights where everyone is kind of kiting away from each other and trying to stay alive. I think some more reliable isolation could be very good in these small skirmishing situations, but like I said, we'll just have to see how it goes in game. And this is all just, you know, speculation. That's all we can do at this point. Okay, so the next buff is yet again another quality of life change. The increased R duration from 10 to 12 seconds. Now, a lot of people often complained about this, and this really is just another quality of life thing that really just does not have much impact on Kha'Zix at all. What this change does is it allows you to take a little bit more time when using your Void Assault casts. Now, personally, this has never been an issue for me. I think 10 seconds is perfectly fine. The only time I can see this change being useful for Kha'Zix is when there's a really long extended fight and you've been forced to use an R cast, but you don't actually need to use the other one yet. And that little bit of extra time lets you hold onto it, and then you somehow find a chance to use it again to re-engage and grab a kill or something like that. It really just doesn't feel necessary, especially with non-evolved R. I understand that many people complained about how R Evolve didn't have enough time to cast all of the 3 Void Assault casts in 10 seconds. And for that, sure, it definitely makes sense. It's going to be really nice for R Evolve, but it won't change the way Kha'Zix performs in fights or how he wants to play the fights. Usually, in this meta, he's only got one chance to go in, do his thing, and then get out. So yet again, I feel these changes are just going to be fairly situational. It's definitely going to feel nice to have a bit more time with R Evolve for some outplay potential, but other than that, we're just going to have to see how it feels in live servers. Keep in mind that Kha'Zix initially had 12 seconds of uptime on his old R, so this is a revert back to old numbers, I believe. Alright, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the nerf to the W Evolve, and why I think it overshadows literally everything. It overshadows the buffs to his isolation and R, and will make Ka just feel worse to play in my opinion, especially against the harder team comps. So, many of you know that the current meta really just doesn't suit Kha'Zix at all. It's extremely hard to play into unkillable bruises and tanks. Hell, even mages and AD carries now have extremely easy access to defensive options such as Seraph's Embrace, Crown, Zhonya's Shield Bow, Bloodthirster. Hell, the AD carries are even building Randuins. It's not fun, man. It's not fun at all. Ka has had a hard time, to say the least, and with the durability update pretty much gutting all assassins and lethality, it's very hard to kill these healthy armored up champs unless you get some good setup from your team or the enemy makes huge mistakes. Now this has led to a surge in W Evolve playstyles. Why? Because W Evolve is the way for Kha'Zix to function against teams that don't allow him to assassinate. The W slow allows him to create chances for his team to capitalize off, and overall it just transitions Kha'Zix into a more team-oriented champion who applies heavy utility to help out in teamfights. Now the fact that this is getting nerfed means that his best way of playing, the W spam playstyle, the only reason Kha'Zix is even remotely playable in the higher elos, is becoming weaker? Like, seriously? We barely have anything to work with as an assassin. I mean, our damage has been nerfed like crazy. The durability patch means everyone is tankier, and now the nerf to our utility means that it's going to be even harder to do the one thing that kept Kha'Zix semi-viable. I mean, it just kind of sucks, man, and a lot of people, including myself, are pretty disappointed in this change. It's not the W nerf itself, right? Let me just say that. It's the fact that the so-called buffs to his ISO range and his R really just don't compare to what we are losing in return. So, I'm sorry if you got lost there. Just to recap, the reason we are upset and the reason why this is a nerf overall is because Kha'Zix's main way of playing against hard team comps and good players is getting nerfed, and in return, we're receiving very lackluster quality of life buffs. That's pretty much the gist of it, guys. Now, something to keep in mind is that these changes primarily negatively affect his performance in higher elos, where gameplay is more coordinated and fewer mistakes are made, thereby W Evo is more important. If you're in the lower elos, let's say low diamond, plat and under, bro, don't worry about a thing. Trust me, Kha'Zix will be fine for you guys. Hell, he'll even be even better if you aren't a W Evolve player, so don't worry too much if you're down there, because he's by far the most enjoyable in those elos anyway, and you guys will enjoy some nice quality of life buffs. Now, some of you might be wondering or thinking, well, you know, I don't really run W Evolve, right? Because I like the other evolutions more. And to that, I say to you, me too, man, me too. I find myself that I am traditionally more of a QRE player or QER player. I play with Q, E, and R evolves almost every chance I get. But in the games where I have to go W, which is very often these days, I will go W. But let's say you don't go W. Let's say you're like me, who runs the other evos every chance you get. These changes will no doubt be nice for us cultured individuals who don't resort to W spam, and instead torture ourselves by looking to assassinate in this tanky ass meta. Maybe we'll have more chances to succeed, and maybe we might see better performance in games. I'm doubtful, but who knows. 50 isolation range can be useless, but it could also mean the difference between getting a kill and dying. We will have to see, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the changes in the comments. I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little talking video. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's nice to just sit back and talk to you guys for once. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening to my thoughts, and I will see you next time for some more juicy Kha'Zix. Catch you guys later.